Good evening, fellow Plexers. This will be my third video on the Ugreen DXP 4800 Plus, and I will show you how I got it set up to achieve those fabulous hardware transcoding results of my last video. I thought I'd start by comparing the model I bought to the 6 and the 8 bay one. Here's the processor in my model, and then the better processor in each of the larger models. I think either of these would be a fantastic choice too. Seeing that they all have two NVMe slots, M.2 slots in the bottom where the RAM goes, you can't go wrong. So I grabbed this for, oh, it's even cheaper than what I bought it for. It's on sale right now. Look at that. I did not expect that. Let me refresh this. Wow, I bought it for $509 or $519. Oh, I'm sorry. This is not the Plus model. My mistake. Well, I don't know why it's not coming up unless they're sold out. Maybe they're sold out. That could be it. Well, I also bought an additional RAM module because it came with one just like this by Samsung, 8 gigabytes, so I have 16 gigabytes in my unit. And these were also on sale. This is still the same sale price. I bought two of these. They're highly rated. Recently on my radar. Only I had purchased the version with a heat sink because they were the same price during Prime. I had to remove the heat sink because they would not fit when I installed them in the Ugreen NAS. So basically I followed Marius Hosting's instructions on how to get Portainer installed, and then I followed his instructions on how to get Plex with hardware acceleration installed, but I adjusted his instructions. I love that he makes it easy to get things going on a Synology and now a Ugreen NAS, but his path statements to media isn't really self-explanatory, so I'll show how I set it up. So let's go to the Ugreen NAS. So I took the two NVMe drives and I first created a RAID 1 SSD pool. Storage pool number 1, RAID 1, 938.4 gigabytes. So you've got redundancy in case one of the SSDs fail. And I created a BTRFS volume, and so that's volume 1, and I just named the storage pool NVMe, and the volume 1 was named Docker containers. Then I had 4 leftover 4 terabyte Iron Wolf drives from my first Synology NAS when I ran Plex server back in 2019. All the drives are used and dated with 2019 as their manufacturer date. And I assembled them into a RAID 6 storage pool. So that's storage pool 2, and I named that Rust. Then I created a BTRFS volume 2 on that, and I just named that data. All very simple. So here are all my drives. Then under control panel, or maybe before, I created a admin user and a regular user and associated that with one of my email accounts. This is the user I'll use to log into my file manager under Linux or anything else I use, my tablet, to add media to the server. I use the admin account to log into this interface but I use the user account that has access to both these shared media folders to copy data to the server. This is just how I have it set up under my Synology NAS that has my Plex server. Now, I kind of watched Robbie's setup video over at NAS Compares, and he set his folders up a little bit differently. This is just for a simple Plex setup that'll basically kick ass. I wouldn't use this for much else besides Plex, just like I didn't use my Synology NAS for much else besides Plex. So 2 volumes, SSD volume, and data volume. So let's see what's next. File services. I had a little bit of trouble with SMB. You have to enable SMB service and go into advanced, and I think I left everything default, and I was not able to access this from this desktop. This is Pop! OS 22.04 based on Ubuntu 22.04, and it would not allow me to access this NAS until I checked SMB1 high risk. Now, my alternate boot is Ubuntu 24.04, which access the shared folders fine without SMB1 high risk. So, if you're a Linux user, once you're past Ubuntu 22.04 onto 24.04 based distro, you don't need this. I have not live booted into Fedora to check out the default Fedora install yet. Okay, back to files. I want to suggest something that'll make this a smooth transition into the future if you ever decide to also install a trash guides setup for automation, which requires one shared media folder if you want to achieve atomic moves with a Usenet setup. So I named the shared folder on the Rusty array media-plex. Now this Docker shared folder is on the SSD volume 1. So volume 1 shared folder, volume 2 Rusty shared folder. So inside that shared folder is a sort folder for all movie libraries. It's not likely that you'll have multiple music libraries, so you could just name this music and just keep your music media in it. A sort folder for other video libraries, one for photos, one for TV show libraries, and this is where the SOB NZBD landing folder would belong. And to have all this in one shared media folder set up like this allows atomic or instant moves, which means if a file comes into SOB NZBD in what would be the complete subfolder, it can be renamed and instantly moved into any library folder that you might have. So inside the TV-library sort folder are these individual Plex TV show library folder structures. All the regular series would go in that folder. If you had Sonar polling for a kids TV show library, it'd go in something named like this. If you wanted to DVR with Plex, you could have that commercial content separated from your non-commercial content into a separate folder structure. And if you were a consumer of anime, you could have a separate anime TV show library. Having this nested in separate folder structure allows a service like Sonar to have multiple root folders. So maybe the first 5 TV shows you add to Sonar will be pointed to that. And then you'll add a show that you want your kids' TV show library or a cartoon library, and you'd point it to this structure. And then maybe you start collecting anime, you can point those type of episodes to this structure. And you can do the same thing with radar. So if I go into the movie library sort folder, radar could pull certain movies into the main movie library folder structure, certain ones into the kids movie library structure, certain ones into this documentary. Maybe you're collecting stand-up shows which are listed as movies at TMDB. You could have a movie-stand-up folder. The only thing radar can't do is pull the same movie and put different versions in different folders. So you can't pull a regular version for this folder and a 4K version for that folder. That would require a second instance of Sonar. So this structure really preps you for a trash guide setup down the road. So I just wanted to cover that. And I'm following the rule from Matt Peterson, the admin of Dockerholics. With Docker containers, you do not use uppercase letters or spaces in all of these folders until you get into the level of Plex. So here's the folder with the TMDB ID number and the year. Just regular case, no underscores, no period to replace natural spaces, and then the same type of naming for the actual movie file. And that's all based on Plex's support. So this is really just to talk about how to set a good foundation for this new Plex server under a Ugreen NAS that then you can add in a trash guide setup. And this nested structure is the way to go. The alternative is you'd have one shared media folder, and if you had 3 movie library folders and 2 TV library folders, a music library folder, and 4 other video library folders and 10 photo libraries, they'd all be flat under this shared folder instead of nested. TV libraries belong here, photo library folders belong there, other video library folders belong in this structure, and movie library folders belong here. So it's neat and good for a trash guide setup in the future. Okay, so I think we can be done with this for a second. So let's go back to the instructions on how to install Portainer. This guide right here is perfect. If you slide down, you simply follow his instructions. He takes you into the Ugreen App Center. You install Docker. If you follow my lead and you use the 2 M.2 slots for a fast volume 1, you would install Docker to volume 1, the SSD volume. So you just follow these instructions, and then he's going to take you to a point where, just like on a Synology NAS, you have to create a subfolder under the Docker shared folder called Portainer. So then he takes you to the control panel to terminal, and you have to enable SSH on this port. And then he shows you how to use a command prompt on your desktop PC or laptop. If you're running Linux like I am, you can just open terminal. If you're in Windows, you could do a command prompt or install the PuTTY client to do it. So he walks you through how to log in using your admin username and password in terminal into the Ugreen NAS. And he also tells you every step of the way what it's going to look like. So basically, once you get in, you elevate your privilege by the sudo su command, and then you copy this and you right click in terminal. Let me show you. So I'm going to copy that, and at least under Linux with my terminal, I can just right click and choose paste. And if I'm logged into that Ugreen NAS, running this would create the Docker, the Portainer Docker, and it would be running. So he just basically walks you through, and he walks you through how to set up Portainer. So you should have a password and a username all set to go to use with this. And I always suggest having a scratch pad and having things like that already set up. Password, username, whatever you're going to put in, paste it into a field. Don't type it, because if you type it, you might make a mistake. And let's also offer this suggestion. The How to Secure, or How Secure is My Password website by security.org. You can use a passphrase. Doesn't take too many words strung together in a sentence to get 7 quadrillion years. And maybe capitalize every word and add in some numbers. Everything is different. My Synology NAS is set up that it requires a character, uppercase letter, and a number. So it has to have all 3 of those conditions. So type them out in a scratch pad and then paste them into something. But before you do that, paste it into How Secure is My Password. And I would be, at the minimum, looking for a few billion years. It's not that hard to reach. Every password should be different. Okay, so once Portainer is set up, you can go to his instructions on how to use Portainer to install Plex server with hardware accelerated transcoding. Now I'm going to paste my instructions into the descriptions of this video. And let me show you what I do differently. I do not use the Plex claim thing at all. I just claim the new server that's created, or if you're moving a server, you just claim it and rename it the same thing. So this is mostly for somebody starting Plex fresh. I'll do a future video on moving one of my test servers on my Synology NAS to this Ugreen NAS to replace this test server I have set up. So you have to create a folder in the shared Docker folder. This is where I do things a little bit different. I just called it Plex. Marius is calling it Plex HW for hardware transcoding. So you're in Portainer and you go to stacks, and this is what he has you paste in. So what I changed is I don't like this path. So my volume 1 goes to the SSD. Mine had to be volume 2 to get to the rusty volume. And he's got a shared folder called movies. And inside that shared folder, he has a folder called media. And that just sounds kind of ass backwards. Wouldn't you have a shared folder named media? And inside it, maybe have a folder named movies and TV shows and music? So this just tells me that Marius, as smart as he is and as helpful as he is, he's not running a very complex Plex install if he's running one at all. So anything after the colon is what you see in Plex's interface when you're pointing to a path. And RO means read only. If you wanted to run a Plex DVR, this would have to be read write. The config stuff is always read write. So this is the information that enables hardware acceleration. You'd substitute your own time zone. He's got a URL to find that. And he's also got instructions on how to SSH in to find your UID and GID numbers. And again, that's done with terminal SSHing into the NAS, or you use whatever you use under Windows PuTTY. And I just eliminate this Plex claim code, and I just claim the server. So once you're up and running, I just access the new NAS at this address, and I substitute in the IP address for my server. So my Ugreen server is at 192.92.68.80. So I just substitute that in, add this to a web browser. I go in and claim the server and name it. So let's show you my information. So the Plex application folders, go to volume 1, which is the SSD volume, to the shared Docker folder, to the Plex subfolder in that shared folder, and Plex treats that as an alias for config. So this gives me access to my media, which is on volume 2 in the media-plex shared folder, and anything in that then I have access to through this alias I made, Plex-Ugreen-Media. Now, it doesn't matter about uppercases. On this side, this is just an alias. I'm still not using spaces, but I could have if I wanted to. Again, this is a copy to enable hardware acceleration. Here's my time zone. And by running ID when I SSH'd into the NAS, I came up with a UID of 100 and an ID of 10. Both my Synology NASs turn out to be 1,000 and 1,000 for each of these. So I didn't do much modifications, but that's what I did. And if we go into Portainer, you'll see I have the 2 containers running, and someplace on Marius's site, he'll show you how to update a container. You can't update Portainer from within Portainer, but you can update the Plex server. To do that, you click into Plex, you stop the container, you wait for notification, you click Recreate, and you slide over the Repull Image tab, click Recreate, you wait for success. For about a minute or two, it'll say starting. You can just refresh Portainer. Let's go to the web app while that's starting. Well, it's up. It shows up right here in the web app. So if I refresh that, it's healthy now. So now in the web app, I've already forwarded a port for this and set that up. If I drop down to libraries, you'll see I've only added 2 movie libraries. So let's add my public domain TV show library and the kids TV show library. So I'll click on TV shows, I'll click next, I'll browse. Here's that alias I used. That gives me access to everything in that shared media folder. So I'll go to the TV-library sort folder. I'll pick the main library folder, click add. Because I name everything from TVDB and not TMDB, I'm going to go to advanced and change episode ordering to TVDB. Click add library, and you'll see things start to populate. There's only 3 shows in this folder structure. So if we back up, I'll add another library. I'll call this TV shows cartoons. Next, browse for media, the same alias, the same sort folder. Now the TV-kids library folder structure, which has some Looney Tunes cartoons in it. Now this is not listed at TMDB. It's a virtual TV show made up of old Looney Tunes movie shorts. So So I definitely have to change episode ordering to TVDB because that virtual series does not exist at TMDB. Now let's add a music library. The same alias to my shared folder on the Ugreen NAS. And now I'll pick music. And I'll pick the main music library. And these are public domain artists. And I can just click add library. So if I go into this one, I now see this virtual series. Now, not all the Looney Tune movie shorts are public domain, but the ones from 1930 that I have and from 1931 are. If I go into the music library, these are the 3 artists. And if I change to albums, these are the 3 albums. And they're public domain too. So that's about it, besides going into the transcoder setting. And I've already changed these settings, but you can leave this field blank and enable HDR tone mapping is already checked. Use hardware acceleration when available is something to check. Check this. Save changes. Change this from never to HEVC sources. Save changes, and this last option will pop up. Check that. And you might as well change from auto to the actual iGPU. Save changes, and that way whenever you come into this section, you'll see your iGPU. So it's an Intel Alder Lake UP3 GT1 UHD graphics iGPU. Seems to work nice. So that's basically it. This is a nice little NAS. Got to give credit where credit is due. Marius makes it easy to get this stuff going if you've never used Docker before. And I will paste this in the description. And just remember, the container name I'm using is Plex. So this has to be Plex also. And you have to create the folder name Plex. And Marius uses Plex HD. So if we go to his instructions, he has you create HW. He has you create the folder name Plex HW, and then his stack Plex HW, Plex HW. Now you can copy that if you want. I just changed to Plex. It made more sense to me, and definitely you now know how that works. Volume 1, which yours might be volume 2 if you have an SSD volume and a Rusty volume. This would be the shared media folder. It might just be media for you. If you copy me, media-plex. And I just stop there and eliminate a subfolder. I mean, you could do media/movies, and then have another line that says volume 1/media/TV shows. You could go the full gamut and include everything separately, but it makes more sense just to have the one path because you can see everything under it no matter what type of library you're adding. So that's it. Any questions, feel free to contact me on YouTube. Feel free to contact me in the Plexaholics group. And happy plexing. This is a little kick-ass device for a Plex server. Happy plexing.